Hello again, another review, book review on one called, let's see if we could see the Unix, A History and a Memoir. Now, this book is currently and has been for a while on Kindle Unlimited. So that means if you have Amazon Prime or student Amazon Prime, you could probably get, let me check this recording, you could probably get this book very cheap, $0. That's a great price. But Kindle Unlimited costs $10. So this book, it's a history of Unix, talking about how it was made, where it was made, Bell Labs, AT&T, the research they were doing there, but doing it on their own, creating programming languages, and the history of creating programming languages. Ken Thompson, Dennis Ritchie, legends of the programming space who laid the foundation for operating systems and programming languages today. And this is one of many books by Brian Kerningham. He was at Bell Labs. He was talking about his personal account of all the research that was going on there. And there are some problems with this book. I mean, let's take a look at the table of contents. But the problem with this book has been the technical aspect. There is a lot of explanation of Unix commands, and that's very difficult to understand, if that makes sense, because he tries to give the history of how each command was made, how useful they were, and how monumental they were at the time, and how it was a fulcrum. It was a big turning point for many programmers around the world to finally be able to use a system with these commands, and it was cross-platform. So that meant that these were the first computers that could go from different computer to computer with different hardware. And before Unix, every single new desktop or computer, or like these big supercomputers, I don't think they had desktops yet, but every single supercomputer had to have its own software created. And he's saying that Unix was monumental because it created a kernel or an internal operating system that could be transferred from hardware to hardware. Big deal. And how these guys ended up making all of this. So you could see right here, Biography of Ken Thompson, where my mouse is, under chapter 2. Biography of Dennis Ritchie. I read an older version. The newest Kindle version was released this year. The 2020 version is more up to date with more information. I believe I only read, I think 7th edition wasn't there when I read it. I'm not too sure. But there's stuff in here that I don't remember reading a year ago when I read this book. At the same time, they were also talking about the wars between different research facilities, privatization, trying to buy out Unix and patent it, and how they were more toward being open source and using it to progress the world rather than make money and patent something and resell it. But people ended up doing it anyway, and he talks about that. He talks about the C programming language and how it was created. But just remember, if you read this book, it gets technical. And for me personally, I had to skip the technical part and mostly read the history and how important Unix was and still is as a core operating system within most computers, pretty much almost all of them, that Unix is still used to build the operating system on top of it. Then the roles, he also talks about the roles of which lower level programming languages are played in software. So let's see, that was who wrote it, which was a programmer from Bell Labs making a personal accounting of the research. What is it about? It's about operating systems, low-level programming languages. It has technical details and biographies of legends in programming, and I think it's a really good idea to read these biographies because it gives you inspiration to be a programmer. And if you want to be in the programming space, software development, it's good to have role models, people who really took programming to the extreme and accomplished great things and changed the world, basically. So I think these biographies are good. Is it a good book? Honestly, I didn't like the way it was formatted. I didn't like the writing style. Um, it was just it was difficult to consume because of a lot of it seemed tangential. A lot of it seemed like it was digressing, like it was irrelevant to what I was trying to learn. But honestly, when I closed the book and finished it, I realized just by seeing um, other texts and learning in my university classes that this book is very relevant. Just know that it's hard to consume because of the way it's written. Um, but yeah, it's a good book in the end. It's not gonna hurt to read it. It's only gonna help. So why not just read it? Just know it's gonna be a little bit tough to read. There's gonna be technical stuff in it, and just remember when I read it, I skipped that stuff. So yeah, I recommend it. Why not? It'll help. And there really aren't that many books that will teach you this kind of stuff. So you really don't have that many options when it comes to getting personal accountings of different languages and operating systems. So this is one of the good ones. There are bad ones, and this is actually one of the good ones. All right, that's the book review of A History and Memoir of Unix. I hope you learned something.